Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Down a Bad Road by Regina Buttner, narrated by Jennifer Pickens. Chapter 1. Lavender took a bottle of wine out of the fridge, poured herself a big glass over ice, and dialed the psychic's number. "Thanks for agreeing to do this over the phone," she said when Penelope answered. "I was afraid to go out with that snowstorm coming." "Phone readings aren't ideal, but I'll do my best," Penelope said. "I see you texted me some photos. Is that the new boyfriend you told me about the last time you were here?" "Yes." Lavender's voice bubbled with happiness. "That's Ron Burley. He's actually my fiancé now. He proposed to me this morning. Got down on one knee and everything." Holding her left hand up to catch the fading afternoon light, she admired her sparkly new engagement ring. The princess-cut diamond was gorgeous. Burley must have blown the last of his savings on it, hoping to impress her with his devotion. Well, it had certainly worked. "You filed for divorce then, I take it?" Penelope said, like the prim old granny that she was. "Of course I did. Clint and I split up months ago. Anyway, I sent you those photos because—" "Hold on, don't tell me anything else," Penelope said. "I'm feeling something coming through from his image. Give me a few seconds to concentrate." Lavender drank more wine and tapped her periwinkle fingernails on her glass, wondering what kind of flowers to put in her wedding bouquet. Tulips would be nice, or maybe a big bunch of peonies in different shades of pink. Penelope said after a moment. Lavender shook herself from her flowery daydream. "What is it?" "You told me once before that your ex-husband had a temper," Penelope said. "But this man may be even worse." Lavender giggled, already buzzed from the wine. "That's ridiculous. Burley's the sweetest, most laid-back guy you'll ever meet. I've never even heard him raise his voice." "Just you wait," Penelope said darkly. "He's going to explode one of these days." "Yeah, right." Lavender twisted a lock of her long blonde hair around her forefinger. "I seriously doubt it. Never mind that, anyway. I have an important question about him and the woman in the second photo I sent. Her name is Marta." Penelope made a grumbling sound in her throat. "This is why I try to avoid phone readings, especially when it's a complicated situation like this one." Lavender frowned. "What do you mean, complicated?" Penelope hesitated before answering. "There's a lot more to this than you realize. I'd much rather sit down with you in person. It would be easier to explain things that way." Lavender huffed in annoyance. Why couldn't the damn woman spit it out? "What's there to explain? Marta was a childhood friend of Burley's. They grew up together. All I want to know is if there was ever anything romantic between them." "Wait a second while I study her picture." There was a moment of silence. Then Penelope spoke again. "He's definitely not in love with her. Obviously not, since he wants to marry me. Besides, Marta's dead now." "Dead?" Penelope said. "I don't think so." Lavender choked on her wine. "Yes, she is," she sputtered. "She literally died of cancer a few days ago, and not a moment too soon." Penelope chuckled. "Who told you that?" "Burley did." "I'm not so sure his information is accurate. There's an aura surrounding Marta's image, and the color is a vivid green. Green symbolizes life and strength." Lavender gasped. "But wait, how is that even possible?" "I don't know. I'm just telling you what I see. There's also a gray area within her inner aura, which is often a sign of fear or paranoia. My sense is that she's alive and her body is perfectly healthy. It's her mind that's sick." The wine glass clanged against the coffee table as Lavender sat up straight. Was Penelope out of her freaking mind? "But I'm certain Marta's dead. she said. "Burley told me so this morning. You must be confusing her with someone else." "When a spirit crosses over to the afterworld, messages do occasionally get mixed up," Penelope said. "This is an art, you know, not a science. But the vibrations coming from this woman's photo are very strong, which means her soul is still dwelling on the earth plane, and I believe it's entwined in some way with your fiancé's. Auras, vibrations, earth plane." Lavender screwed up her face in bafflement. Maybe consulting a psychic hadn't been the best idea after all, and she should have listened to her friend Shayna, who had told her to trust her gut. Despite what Penelope seemed to be implying about Burley's trustworthiness, Lavender had no doubt that he was a good, honest man who would never, ever lie to her. Raising her hand, she gazed at her ring again. Judging by the size of the glittering rock, her darling, hard-working Burley was absolutely gaga for her. Enough of this nonsense. The purpose of the consultation with Penelope was to put her concerns about Burley and Marta to rest, not to go off on this preposterous "Marta's got a green aura" tangent. "All right, whatever," Lavender said. "Let's assume Marta's dead, okay? Since that's what Burley told me. But what I'm really asking you is if they were ever involved in a sexual relationship." "Let me look at that last picture you sent," Penelope said. The third photo was a candid shot of Burley and Marta, slow dancing at their high school prom. When Lavender had found it in a box of Burley's mementos while snooping through his trailer while he was at work one day, the intimacy of the embrace had ignited a burst of jealousy in her. She knew a stupid 20-year-old prom pic shouldn't have any bearing on their wedding plans. But what if Burley still had feelings for Marta? Sometimes old flames were the hardest to extinguish. "Well," Lavender said impatiently, "what do you think?" Penelope seemed to be choosing her words with care. Yes, their relationship did become sexual on a few occasions in the past." "How far in the past? When did it start?" "Oh, it started back when they were teenagers, but it didn't go anywhere at that time. He wasn't into her the way she was into him. It was a classic case of unrequited love. But, oh, thank goodness," Lavender exclaimed with a gush of relief. "I just knew she didn't mean anything to him. A high school crush, whoopee. No more worries there. As far as Burley's feelings for Marta went, it was only about the money she dangled in front of him for so long, like a treat held out to an eager dog." Lavender pinched the phone between her ear and shoulder, topped off her wine, and took a triumphant gulp. "There was one other thing, though." "Penelope," she said, "what did you mean about Marta's mind being sick?" Penelope made the grumbling sound again. "That's what I was talking about when I said it was complicated. Whether this woman is dead or not, you need to understand that she may be dangerous." Lavender snorted. "How can a dead person be dangerous?" Penelope sighed. "It's hard to explain. The message I'm getting isn't quite clear. This storm that's about to dump on us has thrown my chakras out of balance. It happens sometimes when the atmospheric pressure is in flux." What in the hell were chakras? Lavender chewed the remnants of her peach-flavored gloss from her lower lip. This was a whole lot of crazy talk. "The best I can make of it," Penelope went on, "is that Ron's safety is at risk somehow, and this woman may have something to do with it." Fear jolted Lavender. At this very moment, Burley was driving down to Pennsylvania to pay his final respects to Marta. "When was the last time you spoke to him?" Penelope said. "This morning. After he asked me to marry him, he said he needed to get on the road." Lavender's voice rose on the verge of hysteria. "Are you serious, Penelope? You really think he's in danger?" "Yes, I believe so. And you may be too. You need to be careful." Holy crap. Lavender's insides twisted with fear. Had Burley lied about Marta's death? But why would he do that when he was smitten with her? She'd divorced her husband to be with him. She wanted to believe that Penelope's strange ramblings were completely mistaken, but what if they weren't, and something bad was about to happen? Either way, she had to get hold of Burley, now. "I have to go, Penelope," Lavender said. She hung up without saying goodbye and dialed Burley's number, but the call wouldn't go through. Clutching the phone in her trembling hands, she stared out the living room window as the wind picked up and the swirling snow began to come down harder. Chapter 2. 1 year earlier. Married women were strictly off-limits, and Burley normally wouldn't have looked twice, but this one had caught his attention. He was pretty sure he recognized her. Lavender LeClaire, the youngest daughter of the lone chiropractor in Helmsburg. A girly chick with wild blonde hair, doe-like eyes, and a body that could melt the wax off a grocery store cucumber. There were 3 minutes left in his nephew Cody's soccer game, and their team was getting creamed as usual, 10-0. Lavender was standing a short way down the sideline from Burley, trying to hang on to a hyperactive boy wearing a bright blue soccer jersey and matching knee socks, while beyond them, a cluster of blue-clad teammates were milling around, waiting for their game to start. The boy flipped his water bottle into the air and let it fall to the ground, and Burley caught the glint of a wedding ring as the kid's mother reached her hand out to pick it up. "Cute ass," he observed. Nice legs, too, although the spiky-heeled boots seemed sort of impractical for a soccer game, especially when the fields were so wet. But he supposed a girl could wear whatever she wanted to, especially when it looked this good on her. Something happened on the field, and Jack Nielsen, who was Cody's coach and Burley's Thursday night drinking buddy, shouted over to him, "Yo, Burl! Go give the goalkeeper a hand." Burley shook himself out of his fantasy. He hadn't even heard the ref's whistle. Tearing his eyes from Lavender, he noticed all the players on the field had taken a knee except for Cody, who was standing in front of the net yanking on his helmet, which was jammed over one ear. Darn kid was always monkeying with his chin strap. Burley hustled across the muddy grass, got Cody squared away, and the game resumed. 2 minutes later, the ref blew the triple whistle, wrapping up another sorry loss for the Red Avengers. Burley continued watching Lavender from the corner of his eye as he collected the team's muddy practice balls and stuffed them into his big mesh bag. She and her spazzy son had drifted closer, and he could hear them talking now. The boy was around 10 years old and was jumping all over the place, attempting to dribble his orange neon ball with his knees. "That's enough, Logan," Lavender said as she dodged an elbow. "Wait till you're on the field, honey." Ignoring his mother, Logan hiked a knee up and connected with the ball. It ricocheted toward Burley, who threw his arm out and caught it. Lavender gave an apologetic wave. "Sorry about that." Burley dropped the ball to the ground and gave it a gentle return kick. "No prob," he called back, then moved closer and looked the boy's mother straight in the face. Yeah, he knew who she was, had heard the stories about her and her girl crew. They'd been big-time partiers back in high school. It was several years after he'd graduated, but his kid brother, Richard, had shared plenty of tales of their antics. They were brazen drinkers and stoners, wannabe fishheads from Helmsburg's upper class, what little there was of one in this town. As Logan's coach summoned his team onto the trampled field to begin their warm-up drills, Lavender sidled over to Burley and smiled up at him. One of her front teeth poked out slightly in front of the other, and her lips were a soft, frosty pink. She was giving him the signals, for sure. Must be his 3-day stubble beard, which he liked to think made him look like the country singer Jason Aldean. Feeling a pleasant thrill of attraction, he thrust his hand out. "Hi, I'm Ron Burley." "I'm Lavender." Her hand was sweaty, but it was an unseasonably warm autumn Saturday in the North Country of upstate New York. Instead of the customary parka, wool hat, and scarf, she was wearing only skinny jeans and a low-cut, long-sleeved T-shirt that was hugging her chest real good. She started chattering about the weather, oblivious to the start of her son's game. Burley half-watched the soccer action over Lavender's shoulder and sized Logan up as a mediocre player. The kid's ball-handling skills were adequate, but he was dragging himself down the field, as though his heart wasn't really in the game. Coach Nielsen sauntered over to retrieve the bag of practice balls and check out Lavender. Logan's team scored a goal, and his mother squealed and jumped up and down, making her breasts jiggle. Nielsen gave her an appreciative up-and-down assessment, then aimed a sly wink at Burley as he hefted the ball bag over his shoulder. Jerk, Burley thought. Thinks all I want to do is get in her pants. He glanced back at Lavender. Well, yeah, maybe I do. He knew he wouldn't, though, because she was married, and he had morals and standards. Burley was a man of integrity, and this was nothing more than an innocent flirtation, sort of a practice run, since it had been a while since he'd hooked up with anyone. Now that he was closing in on 40, he'd gotten sort of lazy about it, to be honest. Women were so much work sometimes. But then Lavender began asking him about tryouts for the Hogan County indoor soccer team, which he knew nothing about but pretended he did, so he could offer to look into it for her. Logan didn't stand a chance of making the team, but Burley wasn't about to tell the boy's smoking hot mom that. I'd be happy to put in a good word with the coach for you, he said. Whoever the coach was. He made a mental note to find out. Thanks, that would be awesome. Lavender reached into a voluminous leather handbag and produced an iPhone in a rhinestoned case. She pressed a delicate fingertip to the screen and entered Burley's digits into her contacts. I'll text you right now, she said, so you'll have my number. The back pocket of Burley's Wranglers buzzed, and he was embarrassed because now he had to take out his crappy flip phone with the scuff marks all over it from the time he'd dropped it out the window of his pickup truck at the Wendy's drive-thru. Lavender thanked him again, said he was such a sweetheart, and squeezed his forearm, which sparked something deep in his loins. Leave it alone, he warned himself. Don't even think about going there. In the gravel parking lot next to the soccer field, Nielsen fired up the huge turbo diesel engine of his Chevy Silverado and pointed a cocky finger at Burley over the top of his half-open window. Beers at McCavin's on Thursday, bro, he hollered as he backed out of his parking spot. Your turn to buy. Burley pulled his rusting pickup truck alongside the gas pumps at the mini-mart on Main Street and squinted toward the shop to see who was working the register. He was the store manager there, but this was his weekend off and he didn't feel like going inside, even though he could use another cup of coffee. The girl Amanda was supposed to be on today, but the morning sickness was hitting her pretty hard, so the new guy, Dustin, had offered to cover her shift for her. Dustin was visible through the front window, his maroon mini-mart visor bobbing as he rang up a customer. Burley had started working at the mini-mart when he was 15 and climbed his way up to shift leader by the time he finished high school. He'd gone to Hogan Community College, where he'd earned a 2-year degree in business administration and was promoted to manager. Hard to believe he'd put in over 2 decades with the same company. He guessed he liked it well enough. The pay was fine for a simple bachelor like him, and he'd found he had a knack for building good relationships with his customers and for employing reliable people. A hiring decision he was especially proud of was Dustin, who came from a seriously dysfunctional family with a barfly mother and an old man in the Mohawk Correctional Facility down in Rome. He'd been so quiet at his job interview, Burley had wondered for a minute if he might be mentally deficient, but the kid needed a break, and Burley was willing to give him a chance. Dustin had turned out to be responsible, honest, and loyal, traits Burley prized in his employees. A blue Buick rolled up on the other side of the gas island, the driver's window inched down, and Burley's mother stuck her hand out and waved. "Hello there, Ronald, dear. I missed the soccer game, didn't I?" She waggled her tightly permed head. "I jotted myself a note on the calendar, but then I forgot to look at it when I got up to feed the cat this morning. Ah, well." Digging in her pocketbook, she located her debit card and handed it out the window to her son. Burley swiped the card, unhooked the nozzle from the gas pump, and began filling her tank. "I was over to the IGA earlier, picking up a few groceries," his mother said, "and I ran into Helen Phipps. She got to talking, you know how she does, and guess what she told me? She says to me, 'Did you hear about Marta Grolsch?' And I said, 'Marta Grolsch? Why, I haven't seen her in years. What about her?' Helen says, 'Her husband died down there in Pennsylvania. Happened about a month ago. Sudden heart attack.' So I said to Helen, 'That's a real shame. What's she going to do? Move back up here to be closer to her parents?' And Helen says, 'No, I believe she's going to stay put. Wants to make a go of running the husband's business on her own. Roofing and siding or some such thing.'" Burley kept his head down. Marta Grolsch. It had been ages since she'd crossed his mind, and for good reason. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom," he said. "I haven't been in touch with Marta in a long time." "Maybe you should give her a call." His mother was giving him one of her meaningful looks. "I'm sure she'd appreciate hearing from an old friend." Burley's unmarried state was a source of distress for his mother, who was forever trying to rectify the situation by urging him to get back together with one or another of his former girlfriends. He usually ignored her well-meaning attempts at matchmaking, and she'd eventually give up. But this time he needed to put the squelch on things right quick, before she got carried away. He replaced the gas nozzle in its bracket with a decisive clunk. "No, Mom," he said firmly. "I am not going to call Marta, and don't go getting any of your ideas about us. We haven't spoken in years, and that's how I want to leave it." "Oh, dear, I was only suggesting." The hurt expression on his mother's face made Burley feel bad for being so abrupt. "I'll call her when I get a chance, okay?" he said. "Just don't expect anything to come of it." Handing his mother her receipt, he backed away from the car. "Don't forget you need to come over and put up my storm windows," his mother said. Burley looked at her in dismay. He'd put up her storm windows 2 weeks ago. Boy, her memory was really starting to slip. "Sure, Mom," he said. "I'll take care of you. Don't worry." His mother smiled and rolled her window up and drove off. After filling his own tank, Burley climbed back into his truck and headed west out of town, past the lumber mill and the county fairgrounds, and thought about his mother's piece of news. Marta Grolsch a widow. In spite of the estrangement that had developed between them, he couldn't help feeling sorry for his old friend. It had to be rough, coping with a tragic loss while trying to raise a child and run a business on her own. The two of them had been best friends growing up, when their families owned neighboring summer camps on Fourth Lake in the Adirondack Mountains. They'd built forts in the woods and gone swimming or canoeing almost every day, and Burley had taught Marta how to shoot squirrels and fly cast for brook trout. A real tomboy. He'd always liked that about her. After high school, Marta had gone off to a preppy liberal arts college in Pennsylvania on a scholarship. She was always the smart one, and majored in philosophy or psychology or some other pointless thing like that. She married a classmate who was from down there, and soon after, her new husband inherited a local roofing company when a distant cousin of his passed away. The husband was swamped with work in the summer months, so Marta used to come up to Helmsburg to visit her parents for a week every August. She'd always let Burley know when she was coming to town, and they'd meet for a drink and get caught up. When had he seen her last? Must be 5 years now. He'd grown tired of listening to her prattle about her wonderful married life, and he started making excuses for why he couldn't see her. As an avowed bachelor, he wasn't much interested in other people's conjugal bliss, and he'd been careful to avoid ever having to meet the young daughter she was constantly bragging about. It wasn't only that, though. Whenever they were together, it felt like there was something off about Marta, and it made Burley uncomfortable. She always looked at him so intently, like she was trying to read his thoughts, and she had this stilted way of talking about her picture-perfect family, as though she was reading lines from a script. It reminded Burley of the studied nonchalance she'd tried so hard to project that fateful summer after their senior year, when he wasn't quite sure if he could trust her anymore. The memory of what she'd done, or hadn't done, he never really knew for sure, still creeped him out. But now Marta was all alone with no family nearby to comfort her or lend a hand, which made him feel awful. His mother was right. He should call her. The road forked and Burley veered onto Hickey Road, where his double-wide trailer sat a mile down on the right, on a small wooded parcel that butted up to 10,000 acres of state forest. There was a detached aluminum garage out back that housed a 17-foot bass tracker, an old Skidoo Renegade, and a mud-spattered ATV. In the summertime, he grew beefsteak tomatoes, zucchini, and eggplant in a small garden patch that he dug by hand. And in the fall, he donned his forest camo, loaded his deer rifle, and trekked out to his tree stand deep in the woods. If he'd had the vocabulary for this sort of thing, he might have described the setting as bucolic and serene. Burley parked his truck in the rutted gravel driveway, climbed a set of wooden steps, and swung the unlocked front door open. And his 2 chocolate labs, Bo and Augie, came charging at him from their matted beds in the corner of the living room. He rumpled their ears and flipped on the lights. The carpet was worn and dirty, the paneled walls were warped, and the whole place smelled of dog. But Burley didn't take notice of things like that. He went over to the tiny kitchen table, pushed his socket wrench set out of the way, and sat down in front of the old desktop computer that he was still running Windows XP on. Emailing Marta was a better idea than calling her, he'd decided, because what if he got her on the phone and then she started getting all weepy about her dead husband? He wasn't good in those types of situations, never knew how to respond to a woman's tears. Email was a much safer bet. Plus, it would help keep a necessary degree of distance between them. Burley searched for Marta's email address in his contacts, then clicked the mouse to start a new message. The subject line stumped him, so he put, "Hi," and began. "Hey, Marta, it's your old friend Ron Burley. Sorry for not writing sooner. My mom told me about—" What was the husband's name, anyway? He thought hard, but couldn't recall it. Something with a K, like Kevin, maybe? It would really suck if he got it wrong, but the man was dead and gone now, so what did it matter if he used the guy's name or not? He continued typing. "My mom told me about your husband. Must be hard for you being alone down there, so I hope you'll come back up to Helmsburg soon for a visit to your folks. Let me know if you do, so we can get together maybe." That was enough words of condolence, he figured. Short and sweet. Time to sign off and be done with it. He typed, "Your friend, Burley." Satisfied with the sympathetic and friendly tone of his message, Burley hit send, then tipped his chair back and thought about the good old times with Marta, before things got weird. They'd smoked their first cigarettes and drunk their first beers together, and on weekends they used to cruise the back roads with the radio blasting in his dad's Dodge, like typical country teenagers. They'd even gone to prom together and had a blast. Anywho, Burley closed his email and went to fix himself a sandwich. His phone buzzed as he was piling slices of ham and cheese onto a submarine roll, and he was surprised to see a text message from Lavender. "Hi, nice meeting you today." Okay, what was this all about? After a moment's hesitation, he texted back. "Same here." "Thanks so much for your help," came the immediate response. What help? After thinking for a second, he realized she was referring to his offer to speak to the coach of the indoor soccer team. "No problem," he replied. "We should get together sometime." Was she hitting on him or being friendly? He had to ponder this one for a minute. Another text appeared before he could reply. "Just to talk," it said. followed by a winking smiley face. Definitely hitting on him. Nevertheless, he needed to proceed with caution here. Lavender's husband, Clint, was an inspector.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?